want to continue the gratitude conversation and where I think the power of gratitude comes from. This is all based on the assumption of the premise, which is not proven, but that people that quote unquote practice gratitude, right, get into a mindset on a regular, consistent basis of genuinely being thankful and grateful for the things they have in their life, whether they be material, whether they be people, whether they be just circumstance. Consistently, genuinely being grateful for that leads to better decisions, better thinking, the way I would put it, an ability to address the flaws of mind, see more clearly, make better decisions for the long run, right? Not looking just focus on short-term pleasure, those types of things. So the explanation, or an explanation that seems logical, doesn't mean it's right, but seems logical, is that by practicing gratitude, you are in effect, well, think of it this way, right? There is a metaphorical pleasure / discomfort meter, right? There's a ratio of pleasure to discomfort. And we've talked about the subconscious mind. My belief is the subconscious mind, one of its main functions is to ensure that that ratio doesn't get too far out of whack, that the discomfort doesn't get too high. So it's constantly monitoring that, and minute by minute, second by second, the actions we take, the things we do, the subconscious mind is kind of doing quick calculations to see if that next action is going to throw that into a position where the ratio is off and there's too much discomfort. And in many ways, let's talk about that's what the subconscious mind is beautifully, efficiently designed to do, and it does it really well. It protects us. It's trying to minimize the discomfort for us. And it does that by things like spinning narratives and, understanding where our flaws and biases and blind spots are, and using that to get us to not think about long-term gain, and really to just try and avoid shorter-term discomfort. When you practice gratitude, that ratio, you're kind of plugging in on that ratio. You're stacking the pleasure side. You're convincing yourself, or at least reminding yourself, acknowledging, bringing to the forefront, making sure it's being accounted for and weighted properly, how pleasurable your life is, how grateful you are for these good things in your life. It's a positive charge to that, and that's what you're really focused on. What are all the positive things in my life? So that overall ratio is getting fed more positives. If you don't do that regularly, as I myself haven't, and you can imagine for some other people, it's very easy to maybe in best case miss some of those positives, right? Not account for them, so your meter, your ratio is off, or even view a lot of it as negatives, right? See, finding negatives in the world more so than, so you're actually adding to the negative side of the equation, the discomfort. And if you're walking around on a regular basis with a ratio that's really, far off or really close to the threshold where the subconscious says like, nope, no more discomfort, you can imagine those decisions you're making minute to minute, day to day, of should I get in shape? Should I treat my family better? Should I, take a chance and pursue the passion that I have in life rather than this job that I'm working now that I don't love that much? Your subconscious is right there to step in and say, no, we can't risk any more discomfort here. And it doesn't happen. And that's where we get into what we talk about, which is you need to be super logical and mathematical in your thinking and have the mental toughness to override that and say, hey, I'm willing to eat that additional discomfort in the short term, even though the subconscious says it's too much to get that longer term gain. But again, theory being gratitude, in many ways, disengages the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind isn't inherently evil or malicious. It's not trying to hurt us. It's trying to protect us. It's got one metric that it uses to do that. It's that gauge, that ratio of pleasure to discomfort. And if it's off, it's going to step in, right? That's what it's there to do. That's what it's going to do. But if that ratio is set in the positive, right? If pleasure seems like, hey, it's way up, then the subconscious mind feels like, well, job done. Nothing for me to do here. So I'll just kind of relax and hang out. And there's no defense mechanism kicking in. There's nothing, distorting your vision. It's clear. There's no inconvenient truths that you're afraid to face because you have leeway. You have room to add some short-term discomfort. So you can face some of those things. You can sacrifice some things that bring a little bit of short-term pain for a longer-term gain. In a very mathematical way, it gives you that, right? It gives you that slack, gives you that extra room to do that. And the subconscious mind is fine with it because it works that way. To me, that's the most logical explanation I can think of. It does not mean it's right. It doesn't mean it's even novel, right? Perhaps that's already been identified, but as I think about it, that's what would make sense to me. And what's interesting about that is, and I think this logic holds, but I'm not totally positive. If the logic is that feeling good about your life, feeling grateful for the things that you have in it and pleasurable about that, the pleasure that comes with that, allows us to think better, then it would seem possible and maybe even likely that the inverse is true. That when you feel bad about your life, that's what's causing you to think bad. So, right, just the inverse of what we've been talking about. But that's an interesting thing. I don't know that that would have been intuitive for me. It's not that it seems far off, but I don't know that I would have made that direct connection. I would have thought it was more about just weakness, and mental weakness, not having the toughness to do the hard thing, or just lack of mental sophistication, not being sophisticated enough with your mental math, not PhD level to see, right, and outwit the subconscious mind to some extent and figure out the right kind of big L logical approach. I would have thought those would have been the things that led to us thinking poorly. This logic would suggest it's we feel bad about ourselves. We feel bad about our situation. We have too much discomfort and we are just not willing to take on anymore. Now, it's possible that both could be true. It's possible that there's some causation, correlation there, right? There's all sorts of possibilities around it. But it's just very interesting to think about if gratitude does, in fact, drive the benefit, which it appears to do. And there appears to be some research on it. And it's something that I'm trying to test for myself as a sample of one and think more about. But if it does work, there's so much to be gleaned there. I mean, the objective is to try and think better, make better decisions, and all those things. If gratitude allows you to do that, A, fantastic news, if that's true, because that's an answer we're looking for. B, awesome opportunity to try and understand that, figure out the mechanics of why. Maybe there's even more insights and benefits to be gained from that.